Hey there, all you beautiful Broadway babies. Welcome back to Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Manani, and this is episode 26 of Broadway Jeopardy. I've got a brand new episode of Broadway Jeopardy every week, so make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss an episode. Today's episode has a special theme for most of its categories. It's a special day for all my players here in the US because it's Thanksgiving Day. And let me just say right off the bat that this year I am most thankful for all of you who tune in each week. Truly, I am so thankful for you. But without further ado, let's get into this holiday game dedicated to that special day.
A day for maize, the Native American word for corn, a terrific turkey dinner,
and brotherhood. So white meat and dark meat, take it away. This is Broadway Jeopardy. Apologies if you didn't know what was going on there. I was referencing Addams Family Values. Anytime I think of musicals and Thanksgiving, I automatically go to Addams Family Values.
Eat us! Hey, it's Thanksgiving Day. Eat us! We make a nice buffet. We lost the race with Farmer Ed. Eat us 'cause we're good and dead.
Okay, looking at this week's categories, we start off as always with last week's Final Jeopardy round, which is Disney on Broadway, the most requested category in the comments, looking at musicals or plays produced on Broadway by Disney. Then we start our Thanksgiving-themed categories with Thanks. All the clues in this category are about show tunes with the word thank or thanks in the title. Then we have Broadway turkeys, looking at some big flops over the years. After that, we have Food, Glorious Food, dealing with different items of food found in shows. And last but not least, we have It's About Family, looking at some musicals about families. And we end with the Final Jeopardy round, so keep track of your scores if you wish, so you'll know how much you can wager. We start off, of course, with the $200 round, or the Overture round as it's known around these parts, where the clues skew easy to help you rack up some bread before I take all the gravy with the harder questions. What does that even mean? Take all the gravy? I don't know. This is what happens when I write these episodes late at night. Anyways, our first clue of the game brings us to Disney on Broadway and the $200 clue. This is the thrilling opening number from Disney's The Lion King, featuring zebras, a rhino, and an elephant entering down the aisles of the theater. What is Circle of Life? I truly believe that it was the shock and awe of this opening number that really propelled The Lion King on Broadway into one of the longest and most profitable musicals of all time. The 1994 film version, of course, also started with the Circle of Life, and it was iconic. Sweeping shots of the African plains covered with every animal under the sun, leading to the climactic rising of Prince Simba as the African menagerie bows in reverence. I mean, how could that possibly be translated to the stage with one fraction of the impact of the film? Well, visionary director Julie Taymor said, "Hold my beer," and she made the number explode into life around the audience that still leaves people with their jaws on the floor decades after first premiering. Moving on to Thanks, your next $200 clue is the song Thank You for the Music can be heard in this jukebox global phenomenon featuring the songs of ABBA. What is Mamma Mia? Most of the big ABBA hits are shoehorned into the plot of Mamma Mia, including the title song, Dancing Queen, Super Trooper, Knowing Me, Knowing You, and The Winner Takes It All. In fact, it was the theatrical possibilities of the song The Winner Takes It All that stuck with producer Judy Kramer and led to the creation of the show. Let's carve out a $200 clue in the Broadway turkeys category with this short-lived show from 2008 is based off the John Waters film of the same name, which starred Johnny Depp in the title role. What is Crybaby is the answer. After the massive success of Hairspray, the book writers of that show, Mark O'Donnell and Thomas Meehan, tried their hand at adapting another John Waters film for the stage. The music for the show was provided by Emmy and Grammy Award-winning Adam Schlesinger, a founding member of the band Fountains of Wayne, and the lyrics were supplied by David Haverbaum, a multi-Emmy Award-winning comedy writer from The Daily Show and others. Though the musical only ran 4 months, Crybaby was nominated for Best Musical in 2008. Next up in the Food Glorious Food category, the $200 clue is... The category title, Food Glorious Food, is the opening song of this British musical about a hungry orphan boy. What is Oliver? The musical, with a score by Lionel Bart and based of course on Charles Dickens' novel Oliver Twist, was a massive hit in England when it premiered in 1960, playing a then record 2,618 performances. The show was popular on Broadway too when it opened here in 1963, just not nearly as much as across the pond. The Broadway production got some extraordinary publicity, though, when some of the cast performed numbers on The Ed Sullivan Show. The Ed Sullivan Show was a popular publicity stop for musicals that always boosted sales, but the night the company of Oliver was on the show was the very same night the Beatles appeared on the program in their American TV debuts. And your final $200 clue in the It's About Family category is... This famously creepy, kooky family got their own musical in 2010, starring Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth as husband and wife Gomez and Morticia. What is The Addams Family? The 2010 musical is not based on the beloved films or TV show, which apparently the estate of Charles Addams was adamant about. They wanted the stage version of the mysterious and spooky Addams Family to be based solely on the single-panel artwork of Charles Addams, who created the Addams Family. If you've never flipped through a book of Charles Addams' cartoons, I highly recommend it. They are so charming and funny and, of course, macabre. I hope you all cracked that round like a walnut. Let's move on to the only slightly harder $400 round now. Circling back to Disney on Broadway, we have the $400 clue. This Disney musical, based on the animated film of the same name, features the songs Son of Man, Two Worlds, and You'll Be in My Heart. What is Tarzan? Tarzan on Broadway starred Josh Strickland in the title role and Jen Gambittis as his ever-curious love interest, Jane. The score was by Phil Collins, who had also done the songs for the film. Though Tarzan is probably Disney's least well-received Broadway outing, it did boast an absolutely stunning opening sequence with the shipwreck and Tarzan's family waking up on the beach afterwards.
Put your faith in what you most believe in. Two worlds, one family. Trust your heart. Let fate decide to guide these lives we see.
Let's give thanks for the next $400 clue, which is... In the film and stage versions of this musical, the character of Henri Lechaille sings the song Thank Heaven for Little Girls. What is Gigi? And yes, it is kind of a creepy song. Let's just get that out of the way now.
Each time I see a little girl of 5 or 6 or 7, I can't resist a joyous urge to smile and say thank heaven for little girls. For little girls get bigger every day.
The song was sung in the film by Maurice Chevalier, who would be closely associated with the song for his whole career. But it has been recorded by many other singers and has been featured in media ranging from the political comedy film Wag the Dog to ads for Mountain Dew. Over in the Broadway turkeys category, your $400 clue is... This musical, based on the Nick Hornby novel of the same name, starred Will Chase as Rob Gordon, the owner of the last real record store on Earth, in his plight to win back his girlfriend, Laura. What is High Fidelity? High Fidelity opened on December 7th, 2006 and closed 10 days later on December 17th. I will gladly and openly admit that I very much enjoyed High Fidelity, and it's definitely on my how could this show have failed list. The show has a fun, rocking score by Tom Kitt and Amanda Green.
And I wouldn't change a thing about it. My whole world's inside this door. Where would I go? What would I do without it? This is all I'm living for.
Taking seconds of some food, glorious food, gives you the $400 clue. If you happen to be a dinner guest or prisoner of the Beast in Disney's Beauty and the Beast, be sure to try this. It's delicious. Don't believe me? Ask the dishes. What is the gray stuff? If you're like me, you were always a little intrigued by this mystery gray stuff mentioned in the song Be Our Guest in Beauty and the Beast. Luckily, Disney put all our inquiries to rest when they offered the real gray stuff at their beautiful restaurant inside of Beast's Castle in Disney World. So, what is it? It's a cookies and cream mousse, which I can personally attest is just as tasty as you'd hope. And finishing up the round with It's All About Family, your final $400 clue is... This 2005 musical, based on the classic novel of the same name, focuses on the March family. Sutton Foster led the cast as Joe March. What is Little Women? The musical, with music by Jason Howland, who also wrote the music for Paradise Square and The Great Gatsby on Broadway, not only stars Sutton Foster as Jo, but Megan McGinnis as Beth and Maureen McGovern as Marmee.
Here I go, and there's no turning back. My great adventure has begun. I may be small, but I've got giant plans to shine as brightly as the sun.
Diving right into the $600 round now, the clue for Disney on Broadway is... The actor Jonathan Freeman played this character in Disney's Aladdin on Broadway, the same character he voiced in the original animated film. Who is Jafar? Yes, actor Jonathan Freeman voiced Disney's villain extraordinaire Jafar and returned 12 years later to play the baddie of Agrabah for the stage version. The $600 clue for the Thanks category is... Besides the song Thank You, this Alanis Morissette jukebox musical also featured the songs You Oughta Know, Hand in My Pocket, and Ironic. What is Jagged Little Pill? Jagged Little Pill is an original musical using the songs of Canadian singer-songwriter royalty Alanis Morissette. The musical, with a book by Diablo Cody, focuses on the Healy family and their many struggles. The show opened on Broadway in fall of 2019, starring Derek Klena, Celia Rose Gooding, and Elizabeth Stanley as Mary Jane, the opioid-addicted mother of the Healy family. After the show paused for COVID with the rest of Broadway, it reopened with Heidi Blickenstaff in the role of Mary Jane, covering for Elizabeth Stanley, who had just had her first child. When Miss Stanley returned to the show, her and Heidi Blickenstaff, a new mother herself, made the unprecedented decision to share the leading role, an amazing example of mothers supporting mothers. Gobbling up the next $600 clue in the Broadway turkeys category, we have the musical Hands on a Hard Body, based on the documentary of the same name, is about a group of everyday people in a contest to win this. What is a new truck? The original documentary, Hands on a Hard Body, was released in 1997 and documented a contest in Longview, Texas, where every year 24 people place their hands on a brand new pickup truck, and the person who keeps their hand on the truck the longest without leaning on the vehicle or squatting wins the truck. The year the contest was documented, 1995, the winner was triumphant after 77 continuous hours. My goodness. A musical version was commissioned by the La Jolla Playhouse in La Jolla, California, and played there before moving to Broadway. The score was by Amanda Green from High Fidelity, and the music was by Trey Anastasio, lead guitarist of the band Fish. After 28 previews, Hands on a Hard Body opened on March 21st, 2013, and closed April 13th after 28 official performances. Moving on to Food, Glorious Food, the $600 clue there is, in this Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, you'll attend a real nice clam bake where the hearts and bellies are full. What is Carousel? The song A Real Nice Clam Bake is the Act 2 opener of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Carousel. The company lounge in the New England air after an amazing sounding community meal, apparently consisting of lobster doused in melted butter, codfish chowder with onions and salted pork, and of course, clams. The song is made fun of from time to time, as, why are we sitting here listening to a song about seafood? But without the song It's a Real Nice Clam Bake, we may not have gotten this brilliant song parody from Schmigadoon.
Put the corn in the pudding and the pudding in the bowl. You put the bowl in your belly cause it's good for the soul. You put the corn in the pudding and the pudding in the bowl. You put the bowl in your belly cause it's good for the soul.
And I'll give you a little hint about the next clue. It's about family. The $600 clue there is, this musical about the Youngers, an African-American family in Chicago in 1951, is based on the landmark play by Lorraine Hansberry. What is Raisin is the correct answer, based on the landmark play A Raisin in the Sun. Raisin is one of the few musicals that's pretty much fallen into obscurity, despite having won the Tony Award for Best Musical in 1974. The musical starred Joe Morton as Walter Lee Younger, Debbie Allen as Benitha Younger, Ralph Carter, who played the youngest son in the 70s sitcom Good Times, as Travis Younger, and Virginia Capers as matriarch Lena Younger. Virginia Capers is perhaps best known today for her many TV and film appearances, like The Golden Girls and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Miss Capers won the 1974 Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical for Raisin. And now it's really time to turn up the heat with the $800 round, but before we do, please, oh pretty please, hit that little like button for me. It helps get these videos served to more fine folks like yourselves, but also makes me feel like I'm at the head of the table. Thank you all, I truly do appreciate it. Okay, let's keep chugging along. Back at Disney on Broadway, your $800 clue there is, this is the only musical produced on Broadway by Disney that is not based on a pre-existing film from the company. What is Aida? Based on the Verdi opera of the same name, Aida originally starred Heather Headley and Adam Pascal as doomed lovers Aida and Radames, with Sherry Renee Scott as Princess Amneris. Recently on the press tour for the blockbuster Wicked film, stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande told The Hollywood Reporter that they both wanted to return to Broadway in a revival of Aida. And y'all, I'm gonna need everyone to start manifesting that right now, because it sounds incredible. On to the thanks category, your next $800 clue is, In the musical Annie, when Annie runs away, she encounters a group of homeless people in a makeshift camp where they sing this song. What is We'd Like to Thank You, Herbert Hoover? Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, was the president at the beginning of the Great Depression in 1929 and was largely blamed for the economic disaster. With hundreds of thousands of people out of work, many became homeless, and dozens of these sort of shanty towns were created by the homeless and were called Hoovervilles to dishonor the man responsible for their troubles. And it's one of those Hoovervilles that Annie finds herself at in the musical. The song We'd Like to Thank You, Herbert Hoover is actually one of my favorite songs in the show, though it was cut from the film and television versions of Annie. Thankfully, it was kept in for Annie Live in 2021.
Today we're living in a shanty. Today we're scrounging for a meal.
Today I'm still in coal for fires. Who knew I could steal?
Taking an axe to the next $800 clue for the Broadway Turkeys category, we have this infamous musical, based on the Truman Capote novella and starring Richard Chamberlain and Mary Tyler Moore, played only 4 previews on Broadway. What is Breakfast at Tiffany's? Producer and scoundrel David Merrick dropped original book writer Abe Burrows, the author of Guys and Dolls and How to Succeed, among others, after the show's first pre-Broadway tryout in Philadelphia. He then made the, let's say, interesting choice of hiring Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf playwright Edward Albee to rewrite the libretto for the musical. The next pre-Broadway tryout in Boston was still a disaster, with new material being implemented sometimes hours before curtain, which ballooned the musical to 4 hours at one point. Ouch. The musical actually had a decent advance sale, no doubt based on the stars and the popular subject matter, but after 4 previews, Merrick preemptively shut down the show, releasing an ad in the New York Times stating that he was closing the show, quote, rather than subject the drama critics and public to an excruciatingly boring evening. I hope you're still hungry for some Food Glorious Food and another $800 clue, which is in On the Town. Cab driver Hildy tells Chip that her ribs get applause, her lamb chops will cause you to drool, and her gravy will lose you your mind in this jazzy song. What is I Can Cook Too? On the Town is of course about 3 World War II soldiers on leave in New York City for 24 hours. Each of the 3 men find love during their chaotic day in New York City. Gaby falls for Miss Turnstiles, aka Ivy Smith, Ozzy falls for museum anthropologist Claire de Lune, and Chip falls for cab driver Hildy, or really, Hildy falls for Chip. The saucy cab driver who can cook, bake, and broil too was originally played on Broadway by Nancy Walker, a brilliant comedienne. Lots of other wonderful women have taken on the hot-to-go Hildy, including Betty Garrett in the film version, Bernadette Peters in the 1971 Broadway revival, Leah Delaria in the 1998 Broadway revival, and the great Alicia Umfress in the last revival in 2014.
I'm a brand new note on the tablet, don't, but just try me a la carte. With a single course, you could choke a horse. Baby, you won't know where to start, cause I'm an hors d'oeuvre, a jelly preserve, not in the recipe book. And what's more, baby, I can't cook.
Let's finish the round with the It's About Family category. The $800 clue is this early 90s musical about a non-traditional family features the songs I'm Breaking Down, Father to Son, and A Tight-Knit Family. What is Falsettos is the correct answer. Falsettos, with a score by William Finn and a book by Finn and James Lapine, is 2 one-act musicals put together, though the original story is actually a trilogy. A one-act musical called In Trousers opened off-Broadway in 1978. Finn later continued the saga of his characters Marvin, Whizzer, and others in March of the Falsettos, which opened off-Broadway in 1981. Almost a full decade later, in response to the ongoing AIDS epidemic, Finn concluded his trilogy with Falsetto Land, which opened off-Broadway in 1991. Finn and Lapine then later worked on combining the latter two one-acts, March of the Falsettos and Falsetto Land, into a single evening of theater, only changing the stories a bit to make it more of a cohesive evening and adding in a bit of the first musical in Trousers there as well. A whole new generation fell in love with the triumphs and trials of Marvin and his family, thanks to a hit revival of falsettos in 2016.
If I repeat one more word, I swear I'll lose my brain. Oh, what else should I explain? Oh, yes, it's true. I can cry on cue, but so can you. I'm breaking down. I'm breaking down. Down. You ask me, is it fun to cry over nothing? It is. I'm breaking down.
And now, my friends, we've reached the big show, the main course. It's the $1,000 round. Let's hear that dramatic music. Best of luck, players. Our final trip to see some Disney on Broadway brings us the $1,000 clue. Disney was actually a co-producer of this play, based on the young adult novel of the same name, featuring the characters Molly, Mrs. Bumbrake, and Blackstash. What is Peter and the Starcatcher? Yes, though it was not advertised as a Disney production, they were involved in Peter and the Starcatcher. Peter and the Starcatcher is based on the book Peter and the Starcatchers by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. We only got one Starcatcher for Broadway, though, for some reason. Budgetary, my guess is. The play is a fascinating and hilarious prequel to Peter Pan, similar to how Wicked is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz. And though it is a straight play, it did contain some musical numbers.
Sailor boy, keep sailing near me, closer now, so's you can hear me as your ship breaks to bits. From the deck for a sec, you can see my lovely...
No. What are you doing? You can't say that on network television.
No. You can't interrupt our scene.
Finishing up the thanks category now with the $1,000 clue. Christopher Plummer sang the song No Thank You in this Broadway musical, adapted from the classic French play of the same name by Edmond Rostand. What is Cyrano? The 1973 musical adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac not only starred Christopher Plummer in the title role, but he was chiefly responsible for its creation. Plummer commissioned author Anthony Burgess to adapt the French play which he intended to perform in as a play. That play then was adapted into a musical with book and now lyrics by Anthony Burgess and music by Michael J. Lewis. Christopher Plummer won the 1974 Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical for the role. Our last Broadway turkey of the game for $1,000 is... This odd musical focused on the relationship between Jenny, who suffers from obsessive-compulsive disorder, and JT, who has Tourette's syndrome and shouts the word lemon whenever he's happy. Critics also shouted lemon, but not because they were happy. What is In My Life? One of the craziest musicals to premiere in my lifetime, at least. As I mentioned, the show is about the romance between Jenny, who has OCD, and JT, who has Tourette's. They are watched over by a literal angel named Winston, as well as JT's mom and sister, who had both died in a drunk driving accident. The angel Winston thinks Jenny and JT's story is like a grand opera, and operas are really dramatic, so he gives JT a brain tumor as well. Yeah, this show was not the typical Broadway fare, that's for sure. The musical does have one positive claim to fame, though. It was the Broadway debut for now Tony winner Jonathan Groff, who understudied the role of JT. Let's try to stuff in one more clue about food, glorious food, for $1,000. We have this 1994 off-Broadway musical, a countrified version of Wagner's operatic Ring Cycle, features the songs Barbecue for Two, Makin' Guacamole, and A Ring of Gold in Texas. What is Das Barbecue? Okay, this show is pretty obscure, I guess, so do not feel bad if you didn't know it. But you'll be glad I mentioned it because it's a gem of a show. As the clue mentioned, the country musical is based on the epic Ring Cycle, a series of 4 fantasy operas composed by Richard Wagner, perhaps most famous for the melody of Ride of the Valkyries. But Das Barbecue takes its story of a magic ring of gold sought after by humans and mythical creatures alike and brings them to twangy Texas. It's a hilarious show with an incredible score. The original production, which opened in Seattle in 1991 before opening off-Broadway in 1994, starred Carolee Carmello, Sally Mays, and J.K. Simmons.
Be on the lookout for a cooker. This little piggy needs a biscuit. This little piggy wants some pinto beans. This little piggy wants some brisket. This little piggy knows what that piggy means. But this little piggy's worse off than you, 'cause he wound up on a barbecue for 2. It's the perfect crime barbecue for 2. How's the sauce sublime?
And the curtain call clue in the It's All About Family category for $1,000 is... This Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick musical's title family is based on real people who were at one point the wealthiest family in the world. What is the Rothschilds? The real Rothschilds family owned the largest private fortune in the world throughout the 19th century. The family combined owned an estimated $1.2 trillion. Trillion with a capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for please, can I have some? The Rothschilds musical opened in 1970 at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater, starring Hal Linden in the leading role of Mayor Rothschild, along with Jill Clayburgh, Robbie Benson, who would go on to voice the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, and Chris Sarandon, perhaps best known today for playing Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride and for voicing Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a great score. If you don't know the Rothschilds, I definitely recommend checking it out. And with that, we've now reached the final Jeopardy round, y'all. Grab a piece of pie and tally up those scores and decide how much you want to wager in the category Musical Leftovers. In this category, we'll be looking at some songs that were cut from well-known musicals. Okay, has everyone made their wagers? Christopher? Jenny? Spence? Okay, here is your final clue. The songs Dear Sweet Sewing Machine and When the Messiah Comes were both cut from this classic musical. What is Fiddler on the Roof? When the Messiah Comes was cut during the out-of-town tryout for the musical, it came late in Act 2 right after this exchange.
Rabbi, we've been waiting for the Messiah all our lives. Wouldn't this be a good time for him to come?
We'll have to wait for him someplace else.
While the title and placement may make you think it's a slow, serious number, it's actually very sweet and light, which is part of the reason why it was cut. As for Dear Sweet Sewing Machine, it was to be sung after the scene where the town is all gawking at what we think is a new baby for Model and Seidel, but it's just a new sewing machine, which was a big luxury at the time. Adam Cantor and Alexandra Silber, who were Model and Seidel in the 2015 revival, recorded Dear Sweet Sewing Machine for posterity as a bonus track on that cast album.
Dear sweet sewing machine, I will promise to love, honor, and keep you polished and clean.
And that's this week's game! How did you all do? Are you popping the sparkling cider, or are you stewing right now? Be sure to let me know how you did this week. I love hearing from you guys and seeing how you did. As I said at the top of the video, it's Thanksgiving, and I am so thankful for all of you who have supported this channel throughout the years, or if you've just joined in the fun recently. I would be forever grateful if you would share these videos with family and friends on social media. I'd really love to grow the channel, and I have the very lofty goal of hitting 10,000 subscribers by 2025, which is just around the corner, so I could really use everyone's help. I literally could not keep doing these videos if it wasn't for my incredible patrons over on Patreon. I am so incredibly thankful for everyone there at every level. I love you guys. If you want to join in over at Patreon and support the channel even more, there is a link in the video description as well as a link to my merch shop. You can follow me on the socials like Blue Sky, Instagram, and others. I will be back next week with episode 27, but until then, I'm Mark Bonanni. This is Broadway by Ghostlight. Thanks for playing.
Eat me! Saute